Hello everyone, welcome to BYJU'S exam prep. I'm Nivedita Rajay and we are continuing what we started yesterday. So I did get a few, responses with regard to the problems that students are facing. So I have defined or I have curated my session in the same manner. Also, the PDF or the content that I promised you is available on our app. ठीक है, और वो एक छोटा सा कॉलम है अलग से जो मैं इसमें ही बताऊंगी सेशन के दौरान ही, और आप उसे बस आप क्लिक करें. ऑल यू हैव टू डू इज जस्ट क्लिक ऑन इट, अपलोड योर एडमिट कार्ड एंड यू विल बी एबल टू अवेल दैट PDF, राइट? क्योंकि वो कंटेंट है तो यूड हैव टू लॉग इन, राइट? देयर इज अ सर्टेन प्रोटोकॉल दैट यू हैव टू फॉलो. तो बस वही प्रोटोकॉल फॉलो करना है, अपना एडमिट कार्ड अपलोड करना है और यू वुड बी एबल टू अवेल दैट कंटेंट. आज भी अगर ऐसा कुछ है जो आपको प्रॉब्लम कर रहा है, और इफ देयर इज एन एडिशनल पैसेज और अ क्वेश्चन दैट यू रिक्वायर, कुछ तुम्हें पढ़ने की ज़रूरत है, कुछ तुम्हें रिवाइज करने की ज़रूरत है और सेशन में वो मिस हो जाती है, डू लीव इट टू मी ऑन in the comments and the related PDF will be uploaded in the same पोर्शन ऑन आर ऐप. लेकिन ये सारी फैसिलिटी सिर्फ और सिर्फ ऐप पे अवेलेबल है. ओके, सो लेट अस कंटिन्यू. ऑल्दो मैंने समझाया था, इसमें से दोनों ही कंसेप्ट समझाए थे. आई डिड एक्सप्लेन टू यू बोथ द कंसेप्ट्स yesterday, but I think students either did not watch the session or they were late in the session, or I don't know, so I decided to just continue with them. Hello everyone, good evening, how are you all? You know the drill, right? We are revising everything that needs to be revised or that might confuse you, so just be with me and keep asking the questions and we shall. Is there a buffer? Is my video buffering or something? Video buffer कर रहा है क्या मेरा? I hope not. Okay, so we have a marathon tomorrow, right? And it starts at 11 AM. My portion begins at 12:30. So make sure that you're there. ये एग्जाम से जस्ट पहले एक लास्ट मॉक है जो आप अपने फैकल्टी के साथ दे सकते हैं, ठीक है? तो जरूर इसे अटेंड करिए. इट विल गिव यू अ सर्टेन बूस्ट एंड एनकरेजमेंट ऑब्वियसली, because it's always comfortable to solve questions with your faculty and it always contributes a lot. So it is only a practice. Do not get disheartened. If there might be questions that that you get stuck at. बहुत सारे questions हैं जिनमें आप फंस जाते होंगे मॉक्स या सेक्शनल टेस्ट के दौरान. उस तरह के questions भी हम लोगों ने मैंने अपने सेक्शन में डाले हैं. So if at all you see how I have solved that question, you might be able to solve those kinds of questions easily in the exam. तो इसीलिए अटेंड जरूर करो. तुम्हारे जितने भी प्रॉब्लम्स हैं वो सॉल्व हो जाएंगे कल. How much time will it take to complete the class? Wow, that's odd. I mean, it has only been 3 minutes since I started. You want me to end it already? Why? Right, so let us start with void contract. There was somebody in the session who. तो मॉक्स मत दीजिए बच्चे, आप बिल्कुल मॉक मत दीजिए. कल भी आप मॉक नहीं दे रहे हो, आप बस स्ट्रैटेजी समझ रहे हो एक बार फिर से क्वेश्चंस को सॉल्व करने की, राइट? टुवर्ड्स द एंड मैम क्या कर रही है, मैं अपने एग्जाम में वही करूंगी. ओके, बस देखना है. डिवोर्स इन हिंदू मैरिज वाला कंसेप्ट समझा सकते हो प्लीज? आई हैव कमेंटेड डाउन ऑन द सेम प्रीवियस लाइव वीडियो हेल्ड यस्टरडे. आई डिड नॉट सी दैट कमेंट. मैंने देखा नहीं. डिवोर्स इन हिंदू मैरिज वाला, इट्स नॉट अ कंसेप्ट, इट्स रादर अ प्रोसेस, राइट? डिवोर्स कोई कंसेप्ट थोड़ी है, डिवोर्स तो एक प्रोसेस है. तलाक का कोई कंसेप्ट नहीं. लोग कंसेप्ट तो बेसिकली इज अ फिलोसफी और समथिंग विच इज इन सॉर्ट ऑफ अ प्रिंसिपल, बट डिवोर्स कोई प्रिंसिपल थोड़ी है. डिवोर्स तो एक तरीका है शादी को तोड़ने का. फिर भी आप can you make your question a little more specific, because divorce in Hindu law is, I mean, what is it that you don't understand? Divorce तो पता ही होगा तुमको. पहले मैं ऐसे समझा दूं, फिर हम डिस्कस कर लेते हैं सिद्धांत. what is it that you want to understand? अगर कुछ ऐसा है जो मैं नहीं which requires a detailed explanation, I would again do the same thing, upload the content on the app. You can just download the content from there. ठीक है, आप उसे पढ़ लीजिए, आपको समझ आ जाएगा. Okay, let us start. So void contract. What exactly is a void contract? Guys, void contract basically is a thing which doesn't exist. Imagine, you know, all of you must have seen, how should I say? Have you all seen legacies? देखा है तुमने legacy? नहीं, नहीं देखा होगा. Vampire Diary का एक वो है, sequel type है. Horrible, but then it does contain a season which, you know, which incorporates the concept of void. ऐसा करते हैं, ऐसे समझते हैं. There are certain things that, you know, that are not really acknowledged in the eyes of law. जैसे law उसको existence नहीं दे रहा है. For example, let's say कि there's a man who is married to B, right? Owing to this marriage, which is validly done following the religious practice, following the personal law that they are, you know, bound with, तो ये सारा का सारा, हाँ, तो they have actually, अच्छा तुम लोगों ने देखा है? Nope. किसी ने देखा है, किसी ने नहीं देखा है? Well, तो फिर मैं उसे पढ़ाने का रिस्क नहीं लूंगी. अगर सबने नहीं देख रखा है, let's not take the risk of discussing it. Let's just stick to this. Right, let's say that A marries B. Okay, A is married to B following all the legal process that A had to. They are validly married. अब valid marriage का मतलब होता है कि शादी होने की वजह से, owing to that relationship, because of that relationship, A has certain rights over B. And the same goes for B as well. They are in a relationship which is recognized by law, and due to this recognition, A has certain rights, B has certain rights. For example, there would be property rights, there would be rights of children, there would be conjugal rights, there would be all kinds of rights that both of them hold over each other because their relationship is something which is recognized by law. सोचने वाली बात है. Let's talk about Article 16. क्या है Article 16? राम मनोहर लोहिया भाई, कितने मार्क्स चाहिए होंगे बच्चे? ये पेपर पे डिपेंड करेगा. मैं आपको 3 तारीख को एक रफ एस्टिमेट शायद दे पाऊंगी कि आरएमएल ज्वाइन करने के लिए आपको कितने मार्क्स देने पड़ेंगे, कितने मार्क्स लाने पड़ेंगे. एम करो 80, इतना तो एम करो. ओके, हाँ, आर्टिकल 16 पता है सबको? कैन एनीवन टेल मी व्हाट आर्टिकल 16 इज? People. What is Article 16? Employment without discrimination. Naveen is right. Ramakrishnan, equality for employment, particularly public employment. Exactly. So Article 16 says that whenever there is a public employment opportunity, it will be given to everyone irrespective of the grounds that are mentioned. So discrimination will not be practiced on certain grounds when there is an opportunity for public employment. Okay. अच्छा, अब अगर आपको पता हो या फिर आपने डीप में पढ़ रखा हो तो आर्टिकल 16 सिर्फ और सिर्फ इंडियन सिटीजन्स के लिए अवेलेबल है. राइट. Article 16 can only be claimed by an Indian citizen, not by somebody who is not an Indian citizen. Now, ये citizenship जो है ये कौन देता है आपको? कैसे आपको पता कि आप भारत के नागरिक हैं? आप भारत के नागरिक हैं because there are certain conditions that the Constitution of India has laid down. And since you fall in one of those conditions, Constitution of India confers upon you the status of Indian citizenship. Because of that citizenship, you get a lot of rights given by the same law. Same thing works in every scenario, right? The moment law recognizes something, whether it is your status, whether it is your relationship, whether it is a title, it starts giving you rights. The The moment you buy your property and you register it, registration is essential, right? Buying is not enough. The moment you register your property after buying it, law starts acknowledging the fact that you have bought that property. It starts acknowledging your title of ownership. The moment it gets acknowledged, you become an owner and you get all the rights of an owner, right? इसी तरह से हर चीज है, शादी में भी यही चीज है. If two people get married, their marriage, if it is valid, is recognized by law and they get all kinds of rights. Contrary, अगर marriage के subsistence के दौरान, especially if he is a Hindu, if he marries another person C, she will not get the same rights. Why? Because according to Hindu Marriage Act, is there a buffer? I see there are multiple people who are complaining. Guys, is there buffer? Is there a buffer? Are you not able to hear me or see me? There's no lag. Hitesh, Shreyas, there's no lag, guys. You have to check your own connection. Mine is working perfectly. जो मैं समझा रही हूँ पहले इसे देख लो. जब मैं कहूँ पता ही क्या सवाल है तब सवाल पूछेगा. I think that would be better. ठीक है. अब if A gets married to C, ये मैरिज void है. void का मतलब क्या है? लॉ नहीं मानता कि इन दोनों के बीच की शादी सही है, वैलिड है. मतलब लॉ मानता ही नहीं कि इन दोनों के बीच में शादी हुई भी है. लॉ ये मान ही नहीं रहा, राइट? तो अब अगर लॉ के हिसाब से इन दोनों के बीच में शादी ही नहीं हुई है तो फिर सी इसकी वाइफ नहीं, ए इसका हस्बैंड नहीं. और जब ये दोनों हस्बैंड वाइफ ही नहीं है तो फिर मैरिज के और हस्बैंड वाइफ होने की वजह से एक दूसरे के ऊपर इन्हें जो राइट्स मिलेंगे वो भी नहीं मिलेंगे. Right, I am translating, don't worry. The fact that A gets married to somebody else while he's still married and the second marriage is not recognized by law, it means that law is not ready to acknowledge that C is A's wife or that A is C's husband. Now, since law is not believing that they both are each other's husband and wife, law will not give them the rights of husband and wife, hence making their marriage void. Let's say that you're born in US, right? You come to India, you say, I deserve Article 16 because I am an Indian citizen. In your head, you believe you are an Indian citizen. But law says, I don't believe you are an Indian citizen. And law is not ready to recognize that status. And since law is not ready to recognize that status, you will not get any right that an Indian citizen may have. Right? The moment law does not or the moment law refuses to acknowledge something, to recognize something, or refuses to believe in something's existence, we call that particular thing void. Got it? This is void in simple sense. अगर लॉ एक चीज के एग्जिस्टेंस को मानने से ही मना कर देता है, मैं मानता ही नहीं. जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल सम पीपल डू नॉट बिलीव इन गॉड, दे बिलीव गॉड डजंट एग्जिस्ट. सम पीपल डू नॉट बिलीव इन घोस्ट्स, दे बिलीव घोस्ट डू नॉट एग्जिस्ट. सम पीपल डू नॉट बिलीव इन ब्लैक मैजिक. I do not believe there's any such thing like that. Right, so they're refusing to believe in it. And if anybody tries to convince them, they will not believe. I don't believe anything happens because of, God Almighty or anything. They're not ready to believe in that concept. They're atheists. Similar things works for. There's no compensation. What do you mean there's no compensation? Use logic. Compensation is a right that law gives you, right? If you don't have a status, law is failing to recognize your status. Why would there be a compensation? Compensation is because there was a contract, because there was an agreement that law recognized. Law is not even recognizing. It's completely, they refuse to believe the existence. What compensation? Nothing. Void. Void in literary sense means non-existent. Non-existent in the eyes of law. This is what void is. ठीक है, wife, husband, same thing. Polygamy, polyandry, bigamy, biandry, both are prohibited. Basically, second marriage, while the first marriage is still in subsistence, is not allowed, whether it is conducted or solemnized by a male or by a female. Right? Now we have voidable contract. What is voidable contract? An agreement gets the status of being void, right? Agreement becomes a contract if it is enforceable by law. But sometimes a contract might be valid, like it has all the elements that are required to make it a contract. There is a consideration, there is an object, then there is, intention, there is competency, everything is present. So there is no impediment as to make that agreement a contract. But the consent in that agreement is not free. So the Indian Contract Act leaves it to the party whose consent was not free. The party whose consent was obtained through fraud. Shalini, there is a certain decorum, bache. I don't know if you know about it. But there's a thing called decorum, discipline, manners. You don't interrupt a person while he's still speaking. When I'm done speaking, you can ask the question and I'll solve it. Right? But while I'm speaking, how do I stop? How do I stop speaking and suddenly answer your question? पहले मैं समझा तो दूं, जो मैं बोल रही हूँ, जो समझा रही हूँ, उसे बीच में छोड़ के तुम्हारे सवाल का जवाब देना मेरे मोमेंटम को खराब कर देगा. ठीक है, तो मुझे टाइम दो, इसे समझा दूं, फिर तुम्हारा क्वेश्चन पढ़ लूंगी मैं. ठीक है, गिव मी सम टाइम. In the same case, what if it is a live-in relationship? In what case? क्या क्वेश्चन है ये? What if is a live-in relationship? मतलब हम क्या अप्लाई कर रहे हैं? Void अप्लाई कर रहे हैं कि live-in relationship law acknowledge करता है या recognize करता है? ये पूछ रहे हो तुम? क्वेश्चन को थोड़ा क्लियर कर दो, मैं इसे समझा दूं, फिर मैं समझाती हूँ. ठीक है, पहले क्वेश्चन को थोड़ा क्लियर कर दो, मैं क्वेश्चन नहीं समझ पा रही. Yes, voidable contract. So where was I? I was at, let's say that one of the parties' consent is not really free, right? Their consent was either obtained through fraud or misrepresentation or undue influence or coercion. Basically, they did not really agree to the contract, but they were made to agree, right? Now, in that situation, the discretion is on them. If you did not really agree with the contract, you can back out from it. There will be no consequences, right? So, in an ordinary situation, if you back out from a contract, if you refuse to perform a contract, that is what we call a breach. You will be liable for compensation and whatnot. But there is a situation in which you can just back out, refuse the performance, and nothing would happen. Why? Because your consent was not free. It was obtained through an adulterated element or an adulteration, fraud, misrepresentation, coercion, mistake, etc. So you have the choice. If you want to continue with the contract, if you think yaar contract to bura nahi hai, bhale hi mujhe, even if I was coerced, the deal is not that bad. If you want to continue, you can. But if you don't feel like continuing, you can back out and not perform it. So a contract which is valid but can also be declared void is called a voidable contract. Got it? Voidable contract examples. Aren't you my paid student, Anjali? Aren't you a subscriber? If I'm not wrong. Am I wrong? Is that another Panchali? शालिनी, अब अपना सवाल पूछेंगे आप प्लीज, इफ यू आर स्टिल देयर। यूर अ सब्सक्राइबर, तो मैंने तुम्हें पढ़ाया नहीं अवॉइडेबल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट? हैव आई नॉट एक्सप्लेन टू यू कंसेंट, फ्री कंसेंट, कोअर्जन, अनड्यू इन्फ्लुएंस, मिस्टेक? जिस पार्टी ने कोअर्जन से लिया था असेंट, वो देगी कंपेंसेशन? कोई नहीं देगा कंपेंसेशन का, कोई वही नहीं है इसमें। कोई मतलब कंपेंसेशन की जिम्मेदारी से ही तो बच रहे हो आप भाई। ऐसे समझो कि मेरे पास एक घर है, राइट? मेरे पास एक बड़ा अच्छा सा घर है, आई हैव अ वेरी गुड हाउस, ब्यूटीफुल हाउस, एंड देयर इज अ पर्सन हु इज आफ्टर माय लाइफ टू सेल इट। पीछे पड़ा हुआ है मेरे, बेच दो बेच दो बेच दो, बट आई एम नॉट सेलिंग इट। अब एक दिन वो तंग हो जाता है, कुछ गुंडों को लेकर मेरे घर में घुस आता है, कहता है कि या तो तुम बेचो, नहीं तो ये तुम्हारी हड्डियां तोड़ देंगे। अब उस डर से कि भाई मेरी हड्डियां ना टूटे, मैंने टाइटल डीड पे साइन कर दिया, ट्रांसफर डीड पे घर उसके नाम कर दिया, राइट? और उसने मुझे पैसे भी दे दिए। अच्छा, अब यहाँ पे मुझे धमकी देकर मुझसे घर लिया गया, हालांकि खरीदा गया है, पैसे वैसे सब मिले हैं मुझे, राइट? और उसका इंटेंशन भी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट करने का था, तभी उसने कॉन्ट्रैक्ट किया है, और ऐसा नहीं कि मुझे एक्सटॉर्ट कर लिया, वरना तो क्राइम हो जाता। वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट अ प्रॉपर कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, राइट? So all the contractual formalities have been completed. He has given me the money. I have taken the money. Up since my consent was coerced, he threatened to bash me, and that is the reason why I said yes. Indian Contract Act gives me a choice. Like, he has given me the money. The choice है, either I keep the money and continue with the title, let the house be his, I have my money, or I can return the money and take back my house. Right, so that is, what else is this? Is English only? What is wrong with you? I have a discretion to use a little bit of Hindi also. This is a mixed class. Whatever I say in Hindi, I translate it immediately to English. Right, so I am speaking in English only. What? Right, so this is what the situation is, and the similar factor applies on all the other, factors, or the adulterated elements, undue influence, or the victim basically, or the person whose consent is not free gets the choice, right? He gets the choice. So if he wants, he can continue with the contract. It is completely his choice. But if he backs out from the contract, if he says, I don't want to perform the contract, law will not hold him liable. In an ordinary situation, law will hold him liable. Law will, impose compensation on him. But you backed out from the contract, you breached the contract, now pay the compensation. But if his consent is not free, he can easily say, I don't want to perform the contract, my consent was not free. And law will say, fine, okay, just return the benefit that you got, and the status quo is restored. That is what it is. After call, can you please upload divorce notes on app? I'm not. You can still access. Even unpaid or non-subscribers can do it very easily, right? You just have to upload your admit card though. I will tell you the entire process. Towards the end of this session, I'll tell you the entire process. That PDF is also downloaded, Namra. I have downloaded it. Siddhant, bache, divorce notes on Hindu divorce are you talking, or do you want them to be on Muslim also? I did teach you, but it's okay. You're not a paid student. You were not in my class. You want Hindu divorce? I'll tell you mota what Hindu divorce is, so that you have an idea of what you're dealing with. Right? So people two Hindus, if they get married under HMA. Basically what happened is, there were different religions, and I'll tell you, Namra, just towards the end, I'll tell you everything, or the entire procedure. I mean, since you are our student, you won't have to download the admit card, but the children who are not our students, they would have to download their admit cards. Actually, no, you also have to download your. Anybody who is accessing it, whether a student or not a student, has to upload their admit card. So I'm answering, actually, let me deal with Siddhant's question, then I would come to yours. The one with laws as username. Okay. Yes, so basically when people from a same religion, what happened was marriage was basically a religious thing, right? It was a societal thing. Whatever happened in the society or whatever has been happening in the society is being governed by religion. You know that. Before law took hold or before we had a proper developed legal system, religion was the law. All the, everything was governed by religion. If you have read a little bit of world history, you know that the entire Europe was governed by the church. It was ruled by the church, not even governed, it was ruled by the church, right? So everything that they did in their personal life or in their political life or in any life, whatever life it is that they're having, was governed by religion. If you were to eat something, it is to be approved by the religion. If you're doing something, it is to be approved by the religion. If you're marrying someone, it has to be approved by the religion. Everything was governed and ruled and dominated by religion, right? So if people were to get married, there were certain ceremonies or rules and protocols that they had to follow. Later on, when law took over and religion had to take a back seat, there were these customs and ceremonies. They became an age-old practice. Like Hindus used to marry in this way, and they have been marrying this way for centuries. And the same goes for every religion. People from Islam have been, solemnizing nikah since the very beginning of Islam. मतलब इस्लाम बाद में आया, उनके निकाह का जो तरीका था वो पहले था. अब यही मैं कहना चाह रही हूँ कि रिलीजन जो है, लॉ बाद में आया है, रिलीजन उससे पहले से एग्जिस्ट करता था. So, instead of creating new ceremonies and practices, they decided that whatever they have been doing under their religion will become their personal law. So, whatever we do in our personal life, personally, by our choice, right? So, me as a Hindu will have certain kind of a marriage, which means that I would be married in a certain way. I would have to follow the Vedic or the Shastric protocol. I would have to take feras and all. Then if I have property, it will be, divided in a certain way. If my father has property, it will be divided in a certain way. And if I marry a person who's from the same religion, that is Hindu, he would be governed by the same laws, right? Hindu. And if we both are Hindus, our marriage will be governed by Hindu Marriage Act. Now, if in a situation where I don't want to live with the same person or with that person who I got married to, and I want to end this marriage, I'll seek divorce. Divorce means dissolution of marriage. The moment you get divorced, the marriage between you is no longer remaining, right? But since there was marriage, there are certain rights that continue being conferred to you even after divorce happens. Hindu Marriage Act lays down the grounds on which two Hindus can seek divorce. तो कुछ situations में जिनमें divorce लिया जा सकता है. There are divorces of various kinds. People can take mutual divorce, or people can take, people can contest or take divorce as their own right. The problem is that, दो लोग शादी करते हैं, वही दो लोगों शादी को तोड़ेंगे. तो कई बार एक डिवोर्स देना चाहता है, दूसरा डिवोर्स नहीं देना चाहता है. So a woman can take divorce on certain grounds, man can take divorce on certain grounds, both of them can divorce each other on a mutual basis. So the procedure for divorce basically has been laid down by Hindu Marriage Act. Okay, Siddhant. That is what is laid down by Hindu Marriage Act. I will still provide you. Now, there is no category basically. There's only one kind of divorce that is being laid down, and it is a judicial divorce. Unlike Islam, wherein judiciary or law does not have to get involved, they can actually dissolve the marriage in between them personally. In Hinduism, it doesn't work that way. I mean, if you have to dissolve the marriage, you have to go to the court. right? So there's only one kind of divorce, but I shall still upload the document. Okay, now comes the laws वाला बच्चा क्या कह रहा है, क्या you're saying कि if one party does not perform the contract, the other has to pay some amount. Yes, that is what we call compensation. For example, let's say that अब ये तो होता ही है, you know, contract is basically another word for promise. Okay, two parties promise each other something, and the moment you give that promise a legal recognition, we call that promise a contract. In simple words, मैंने एक इंसान से कुछ वादा किया, उसने मुझसे वादा किया, राइट? अब हमने इस वादे को लीगल रूप दे दिया, मतलब हमने इसको एक कागज पे ड्राफ्ट कर लिया और लॉ को फॉलो कर दिया. अब ये प्रॉमिस हमारे सर पे बाइंडिंग हो गया. नाउ इट बिकम्स बाइंडिंग. वी हैव टू fulfill our promise. If we don't fulfill our promise and the अब इसमें ब्रीच के भी बहुत सारे फैक्टर्स होते हैं. Both the parties are promising something or the other. So if the other party is performing and I am not performing, then that other party can claim for the compensation. But if both of us are not performing, then nobody can call for a breach or a compensation. If he says this party is not performing, I can also say this, so he also does not perform. राइट? बिल्कुल वही बात हो गई कि भाई एक मिंत्रा वाला डिलीवरी बॉय आया, उसने तुम्हें पैकेट दिया, COD पैकेट था, तुमने पैसे नहीं दिए, वो पैकेट वापस ले गया. दोनों ही तरफ से परफॉर्मेंस नहीं हुआ, समझ रहे हो? लेकिन अगर उसने पैकेट दिया और तुमने पैसे नहीं दिए तो ये ब्रीच ऑफ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है. या फिर अगर तुमने पैसे दिए और उसने तुम्हें पैकेट नहीं दिया या गलत पैकेट भेज दिया तो ये ब्रीच ऑफ प्रॉमिस है, कंपनसेशन देना पड़ेगा, पैसे वापस करिए, राइट? तो दिस इज, यस, this is what happens. If the contract is not performed for the act of God, then we call that, then we say that the contract has frustrated because it has become impossible to perform. Then there is no liability. Okay, who said you have a question? Priyam, please continue. What's your question? ये कल मैंने पढ़ाए थे पर बच्चों ने कमेंट में डाला तो मैंने कहा चलो एक बार फिर से क्लियर कर देती हूँ. Strict liability, I have given an example. So the child who posted the question, you can read it from here, right? Imagine someone has a pet tiger. If they take all the necessary precautions and the tiger escapes, causes damage, the owner is responsible. No excuses. This is strict liability. Right, strict liability is like this. If you're doing something potentially dangerous like keeping wild animals, storing hazardous materials, and something goes wrong, you are responsible for the damage caused even if you were not careless. But if the damage is completely, you're completely helpless. For example, the tiger escaped because of something else entirely, or because the other party, opened his gate. Or let's say you're keeping a tiger, he's safe in his, whatever it is that he stays in. And the neighbor comes and he, pesters the tiger, every day pesters the tiger and keeps the gate open, और गेट खोल के भाग जाता है, उसका मीट लेके भाग जाता है, और एक दिन गेट उसी से खुला रह गया और टाइगर ने कहा ये रोज मेरा खाना चुरा लेता है, आज मैं बताऊंगा ऐसे. एंड द टाइगर अटैक्स हिम. तो यहाँ पे फिर किसी की गलती नहीं है सिवाय उस आदमी की जिसने टाइगर को परेशान किया. अब यहाँ पे जिसके ऊपर लाइबिलिटी इम्पोज की जा रही है स्ट्रिक्ट, वो डिफेंस ले सकता है वॉलंटारी नॉन फिट इंजूरियर का या फिर प्लेंटिफ्स ओन फॉल्ट का. सो स्ट्रिक्ट लाइबिलिटी का मतलब है कि भाई आप लाइबल तो हो इवन इफ यू वर नॉट केयरलेस, बट इफ यू कैन क्लेम अ डिफेंस, इफ यू fall in a category where you have a defense validly applicable, that defense will be given to you. Okay, this is strict liability. Absolute liability is exactly like strict liability, except that it does not even give you a benefit of doubt, right? So like I said, strict liability mein if there's a situation where you can where you can claim a defense, for example ये वाला, ठीक है, जैसे कि पड़ोसी आगे रोज टाइगर को वो कर देता था, पिंच कर देता था, फिर एक दिन उसी से गेट खुला छोड़ मतलब कि रह गया और टाइगर ने उस पर अटैक कर दिया. तो यहाँ पे स्ट्रिक्ट लाइबिलिटी का प्रिंसिपल अप्लाई नहीं होगा, मतलब होगा भी तो डिफेंस मिल जाएगा. एब्सोल्यूट लाइबिलिटी इज अबाउट 2 steps further. So even if you have a defense that you might take, law will not give that to you. Absolute liability means you are liable no matter what defense can apply, no matter if it was an act of God, no matter if any other party was responsible, no matter what the situation is, you are liable, end of story. That's it. Okay. So even if an earthquake broke the cage, absolute liability will apply. You will be liable. पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल लाइबिलिटी जैसी कोई चीज नहीं है, लेकिन हाँ एब्सोल्यूट लाइबिलिटी इन्हीं सिचुएशंस में लगती है. भोपाल गैस ट्रेजेडी, या नवीन कल टिप्स और ट्रिक्स आप मुझसे कल लीजिए. जब मैराथन करवाऊंगी मैं तो क्वेश्चंस को सॉल्व करते हुए टिप्स और ट्रिक्स देना ज्यादा आसान है, राइट? तो आप कल एक्सप्लेन करो, कल आप मैराथन अटेंड करो, बहुत सारी टिप्स और ट्रिक्स आपको उसी दौरान मिल जाएंगी. ऐसे समझाते हुए क्या टिप्स दूं, राइट? लेट्स solve a practical test and then I will give you tips कि मैंने कैसे किया. वो एक एक्चुअल टिप है. There are one couple, both in different religion. Men Hindu, woman Muslim. Woman needs a divorce. What step taken by men? Because when people are from different religion, both of them, obviously they cannot follow one religion because दोनों अलग अलग religion में. So they get married under Special Marriage Act, and Special Marriage Act lays down a particular procedure for everything. तो जो लोग Special Marriage Act के अंडर एक्ट मैरी करते हैं, उनकी प्रॉपर्टी किस तरह से डिवाइड होगी वो भी उस एक्ट में दे रखा है. वो डिवोर्स कैसे लेंगे वो भी उस एक्ट में दे रखा है. वो अडॉप्ट कैसे करेंगी वो भी उस एक्ट में दे रखा है. बेसिकली शादी से रिलेटेड उनको जो भी कुछ करना है और शादी के हवाले से उन्हें जो भी कुछ चाहिए, मिलना चाहिए, वो जो करना चाहते हैं एज अ कपल, वो सब कुछ स्पेशल मैरिज एक्ट गवर्न करता है. ठीक है, इसमें कोई रिलीजन इंटरफेयर नहीं करता. एक्स्ट्रा ऑर्डिनरी फ्रीक्वेंसी का अर्थक्वेक को आया, ब्रिज बहुत स्ट्रांग था लेकिन गिर गया, तो भी आप डिफेंस नहीं ले सकते. बच्चे यहाँ एब्सोल्यूट लायबिलिटी लगेगा नहीं, आप डिफेंस ले सकते हो, बिल्कुल ले सकते हो. अगर ब्रिज ऐसा था कि भाई उसे गिरना ही नहीं चाहिए था, लेकिन फिर भी यहाँ पे एक्ट ऑफ गॉड है. एक्ट ऑफ गॉड बेसिकली हम एक ऐसे डिजास्टर की बात कर रहे हैं जिससे बचना इंसान के लिए मुमकिन ही नहीं है, जैसे सुनामी. अब जैसे सुनामी आ रही है, तुम्हें अगर 50 साल मतलब 50 दिन पहले भी बता दिया जाए सुनामी आ रही है, तो तुम क्या ही कर लोगे? ज्यादा से ज्यादा तुम शहर छोड़ के जा सकते हो, राइट? लेकिन शहर में जो तुम्हारा घर है या वो जो भी कुछ है जिसे तुम अपने सर पे उठा के नहीं ले जा सकते, वो तो बर्बाद हो ही जाएगा. आप एक नेचुरल डिजास्टर को जो सुनामी लेवल का है, आप उसे नहीं रोक सकते. सिमिलरली आप अर्थक्वेक को नहीं रोक सकते, छोटा या बड़ा, राइट? नेचुरल डिजास्टर से नॉर्मल ऑर्डिनरी, जैसे दिल्ली में आए दिन कोई ना कोई ट्रेमर आता रहता है, तो लोगों को अंदाजा है. जापान इज अ कंट्री विच इज which faces or which experiences earthquake on an everyday basis and multiple times a day. Now they have built their lives around it. Their structures, their buildings, their complexes, schools, colleges, everything is built taking into consideration the fact that we experience earthquake very, very frequently. Right? So if they take the excuse ki yaar earthquake, there is an earthquake and building has collapsed. Earthquake is a very ordinary thing for you. What do you mean the building collapsed? If a person builds, talk about Rajasthan for example. Rajasthan is a very hot state. The temperature in summers is extremely high. Everyone knows it. Let's say that there is a person who builds an open school without any roof, right? Or there's a person who is conducting classes in an open ground, and the sun is directly hitting the kids, and the child gets a heat stroke, and the child faints and is hospitalized, completely dehydrated, and this man says it is an act of God. First of all, it is not a disaster. Heat stroke is not a disaster. Sunlight is not a disaster. It is a usual thing, right? When we are talking about act of God, we are talking about extreme disasters. Extreme tsunami, extreme Gujarat level earthquake, Nepal level earthquake, right? Volcanic eruption, something that people have not really, experienced ever in their life. Something which is so unforeseeable that you could not have predicted. Something so dangerous, so extreme. And even if you could not have saved yourself from it. A disaster that happened in Kedarnath. We are talking about those kinds of disasters against which there is no saving. You cannot save yourself from those extreme disasters. If that happens, nobody is at fault. Nobody is at fault, right? So if there's a bridge that falls because of an extreme earthquake or an extreme flood, nobody is responsible. The bridge was strong enough, but no matter how strong a man-made structure is, against a natural force that powerful, it will not be able to stand, right? तुम ह्यूमन स्ट्रक्चर कितना भी स्ट्रॉन्ग क्यों ना बना लो, टाइटेनियम का बना लो, लेकिन अगर नेचर अपने पे आ गई तो उसका कुछ नहीं, मतलब वो स्टैंड कर ही नहीं सकता. नेचुरल पावर के आगे कौन स्टैंड कर सकते हैं? ठीक है, तो हाँ, एक्ट ऑफ गॉड लगता है और किसी की कोई जिम्मेदारी नहीं होती. एब्सोल्यूट लाइबिलिटी में एक्ट ऑफ गॉड भी नहीं लगता. But absolute liability is applicable in a very limited scenario. So we are talking about a public nuisance kind of a situation, wherein not just, जैसे absolute liability is a tort, and tort is more like an individual liability, right? Of 1, 2, 3, 4 people, or maybe a group, few individuals get affected, right? Unlike a crime where the entire society is affected. That is the difference between civil and criminal. So absolute liability connotes a situation wherein, multiple people are affected, not just people, an entire society, right? An entire society or a vicinity or a city or a state is affected. For example, Bhopal gas tragedy. The entire city of Bhopal got affected, right? And not just the people, it severely impacted the environment also. So even if it was because of an earthquake, the company or the factory would still be liable. That is what absolute liability is. What is POMW? कुछ चीजें गूगल भी की जा सकती हैं. If you know what I mean. Anything else? बाकी मैं आपको डिवोर्स वाला कंसेप्ट दे दूंगी, बट आई थिंक मैंने एब्सोल्यूट लायबिलिटी तो क्लियर कर ही दिया है, राइट? सिद्धांत एंड द अदर चाइल्ड. पॉश एक्ट, यू मीन सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट एक्ट. यू कैन नॉट आस्क द एंटायर एक्ट. पूरा एक्ट कैसे पढ़ा दूं मैं तुमको? ये कैसे पॉसिबल है? 1 घंटे के सेशन में तुम मुझसे कहते हो मैम पूरा एक्ट पढ़ा दो. दिस इज नॉट पॉसिबल कार्तिक. IT एक्ट पढ़ा दो, पॉश पढ़ा दो. It doesn't work that way, right? इतना तो सिलेबस ही नहीं होता. तुम्हें पूरा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन भी नहीं पढ़ाया जाता है. पॉश का क्या करोगे तुम? But it is sexual harassment at workplace. So if a lady feels that she is sexually harassed in the place of her work, right, she can get her grievances addressed through this act, which we called POSH. ये है short. ठीक है, इससे ज्यादा विशाखा वर्सेस स्टेट ऑफ राजस्थान से ये शुरू हुआ था. यहाँ पे एक there was this lady who was Bhavri Devi in the state of Rajasthan. She joined an NGO which was instrumental in preventing child marriages. Bhavri Devi participated in it and was instrumental in stopping a child marriage and getting the elders punished. Unfortunately, Bhavri Devi came from a lower caste, and the marriage that she stopped and the people she got arrested were from higher class. They gang raped her. Everything happened because of her work, because of the nature of her work. Now comes the question, if the lady is under a pressure of harassment, or the fact that she won't be able to freely work because there's somebody who won't let her unless she gives a sexual favor, And what if the pressure is of the sort that she won't be able to work because there's somebody in a higher position who might affect her, torture her, rape her? Then she would never be able to work, and the empowerment that we keep talking about will not happen. अगर रेप जैसी चीजों का खतरा रहेगा तो एक औरत घर से बाहर कभी नहीं निकलेगी, वो कभी काम नहीं करेगी. उसी तरह से अगर ऑफिस में उस पर लोग इस तरह की नजर डालेंगे, उसे अनकंफर्टेबल करेंगे, उसके प्रमोशन के लिए या फिर उसे आगे बढ़ने के लिए सेक्सुअल फेवर्स देने पड़ेंगे या फिर उसे सेक्सुअली हरास किया जाएगा, तो वो खुल के कभी काम नहीं करेगी. शुड रादर स्टे एट होम, राइट? सो हाउ डू वी एड्रेस इट? अगर आप इस चीज को पब्लिकली एड्रेस करते हो और आईपीसी में if you seek a remedy in IPC under section 354A or similar sections, then the remedy takes a very long time. बहुत टाइम लगेगा. हो सकता है IPC FIR की वजह से वो आदमी तुम्हें और परेशान करने लगे, आप और हरास हो जाए. हो सकता है पुलिस आपको परेशान करने लगे. वो the person is from a higher position, he might bribe the police officer. You never know what might happen. और इस तरह की चीजें भवरी देवी की केस में देखी गई, क्योंकि वो लोग इन्फ्लुएंशियल थे, पंच थे, बड़ी क्लास के थे, तो उन्होंने पुलिस को मैनिपुलेट कर दिया, कोर्ट को मैनिपुलेट कर दिया. जब ये किस्सा सुप्रीम कोर्ट तक पहुंचा तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा ये तो होता ही रहेगा. पब्लिक मशीनरी इन्फ्लुएंस हो सकती है बड़ी आसानी से, क्योंकि टाइम लगता है, और जब टाइम लगता है तो हर चीज की गुंजाइश है. एविडेंस भी गायब हो सकते हैं, टेम्पर हो सकते हैं, विटनेस हॉस्टाइल हो सकते हैं, पुलिस वालों को ब्राइब दी जा सकती है, हर चीज हो सकती है. तो एक शॉर्टकट निकालो जहां पे लेडीज इमीडिएटली कंप्लेन करें और तुरंत एक्शन लिया जाए. और फिर एक रिड्रेसल मैकेनिज्म आया जिसे हमने सेक्सुअल हैरासमेंट एट वर्क प्लेस का नाम दिया, और पॉश एक्ट. अब हर कंपनी, एवरी कंपनी इन इंडिया, वेदर इट इज अ पब्लिक कंपनी or a private company, even a coaching institute or a college, is required to have a redressal department which is called a POSH department. If a lady faces anything of the similar nature, she can immediately report and the required department will immediately take action. अब ये required department जो है उस आदमी के influence से अलग है. ये department, इस डिपार्टमेंट को बोर्ड भी इन्फ्लुएंस नहीं कर सकता, ये एकदम इंडिपेंडेंट है, राइट? तो अब क्योंकि डिपार्टमेंट इंडिपेंडेंट है और इस तरह की खबर ऑफिस में फैल सकती है, बहुत सारी चीजें, तो हरासमेंट को रोकना पॉसिबल हो गया है. दिस इज व्हाट पॉश इज. Too late. Spoken a lot already. Don't spam here. Come on. अब तुम समझ गए ना ब्रीफ में? I am speaking English. The child who wanted to be clarified in Hindi. Nobody else raised the question, so I thought everybody knew it. And don't spam, please. If A and B एक contract sign किया, A, B to 6 क्या लिखते हो बच्चा? A and B ने एक contract sign किया कि A, B को 6 every month 1 kg गोल्ड सप्लाई करेगा, एंड आफ्टर 3 months गोल्ड का रेट बढ़ गया और अब सेम रेट में गोल्ड नहीं दे सकता. हाँ, तो सो इंडियन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट प्रोवाइड्स फॉर दिस ऑल्सो. सी, व्हेन वी आर डीलिंग विद commodities which have fluctuating nature, the prices of which might go high or low, then the contract is drafted that way. Right, the contract covers everything possible. You think people who are under a contractual obligations are idiots? No. They take into account every possible situation. If they're dealing in gold, they obviously are aware of the fact that the prices may go up or high. So there would be a clause that would cover them in such situations. Similarly, if they're, it's just like you're living in Rajasthan and you're not considering heat. Right, if you're living in Rajasthan, heat is a natural process. There would be a lot of heat. There would be, a deficiency of water. There would be a deficiency of vegetation. You have to take into consideration everything. So whenever a contract is drafted by both the parties, by 2 parties or multiple parties, they take into consideration everything. So this is a personal thing. But every not every person deals in gold, but if they are dealing in gold, they would know what to do in this situation. Okay, it's a very personalized thing. It's very personalized. Indian Contract Act is not a personal law. It is a general law. It gives you the process of creating a contract, following the contract, what would happen if there's a breach, what would happen if there's, if you cannot perform it, what happens then, what happens then. What I'm trying to say is very general. This is specific. Parties will deal with it. Parties can decide how to deal with this. It is completely their choice. Okay? Right, so the child who wanted to be clarified on strict and absolute theory, I don't think is even present here. Right, so I have already given it out. Somebody asked me about monist and dualist theory. Now, these are two concepts in the international law, and it describes how international rules are incorporated into domestic legal systems. And there is, what? Move as in the slide, is that what you're saying? Okay, so this is the simple explanation. It, most of the international theories are based on the idea of what language am I using right now? Am I not speaking English? Okay, Hitesh, I'm glad, bache. Right, so monist and dualist theory. Ho raha hai, I know. Monist theory is like a blending approach. It says that international law and domestic law are part of the same legal framework and automatically become part of country's law without needing any special procedure. So if a country agrees to an international treaty, it is as if that treaty rules are already part of that country's own laws, just like its national laws. For example, let's say that, you go to a school. Okay, you go to a school and the school has a mandate that the moment you put on that school's uniform, you'd have to continue wearing that uniform for the rest of your life. So the moment you enter the school and you come back with the uniform, you are in the house also, you're wearing the uniform. It is as if nothing has changed. Or maybe this is not a very good example. In simple words, let's say that I go to a place, right? I go to a place and they're speaking something. They're speaking something, I agree with it. And everything is, I agree with everything that they say. Now they have created some rules. उन्होंने कुछ rules दे दिए. They have given out some rules that now you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do that. And I agree with all the rules. I return to my house. The rules will be a part of my life or my household. I do not even need to tell anyone that I would be following the rules. It is as if everyone automatically knows. Right? So, monist theory is like that. International law applies on that country without any ratification or special process. Like in India, if India goes to a certain convention or a conference and all of them are talking about ending discrimination, on the basis of gender. Now India comes back, or the, representative comes back, and then he thinks, the things that were discussed in the conventions were actually right. Discrimination on the basis of gender is actually quite prevalent in my country and we need to do something about it. They hold discussions, the entire agenda or whatever it was discussed in the conference is circulated, and the required or appropriate authorities start having discussions. After they are done with the discussions, they come up with a certain law that Indian society is, a certain way. It's a diverse society. Women in every part of the state have different rules and they live a certain way. And This is what we can do to end the discrimination based on the kind of women we have in our country and the kind of culture that exists in our country. And based on that, based on the entire report, now the legislature starts forming a law. That law definitely is formed because of that conference only. But we have to form a law. We have to create that law. That convention will not, that Indian foreign or jo representative jo tha India ka, he does not come back with the law. He only comes back with suggestions. These are the suggestions. This is what I learned. Maybe we should apply this. Right now, the country, our country will create a law based on whatever, they learned and discussed. And then that law will be applied in the country. And that is what we call the dualist theory. Right, that is what we call a dualist theory. The contrary of this is monist theory. For example, if you come back to the country and whatever you learned in your country, you come with a, sheet, you come with a file that is given to you. These are the files, these are the parameters, this is what you should do. And the moment you bring back the file, that file becomes the law. Right, it will be discussed, it will not even be discussed, it will be voted for, assented by the president, and it becomes the law as it is. That is called the monist theory. Understood? समझ गए? Everyone understands? Anyone, any doubt whatsoever? I can give another example. If it is still not clear, just let me know right now. Got it? What do you think? How will be CLAT 2024? Well, we can see it in a day. It's day after tomorrow, right? We shall see it. Without any discuss, bilkul, absolutely. Let's say that, you go to a cooking class and your cooking teacher taught you some things. She taught you how to make an omelette. You come back home, you recreate the exact omelette. You don't add anything. You don't consider anything. Right? She taught you a certain process. You follow the exact same process and you make it at your home. That is monist. But if you come back home and you start improvising, for example, the teacher only added salt and pepper. How about I add some veggies? How about I add some cheese? You improvised and you improved the omelette based on what you like. Right? So that's dualist. Achha, Sheenu also asked the same question. Legal terms are important. Generally, क्या होता है? Legal terms are given in the passage. Obviously, it's a very there's not really a very high possibility of legal terms being asked in CLAT. I mean, they might be relevant in the other law entrance tests, but CLAT and ALET, they don't really focus on that. That is the major difference between monist and dualist. How else? That is the monist and dualist difference. Copying it is monist. Improvising is dualist. That is the major difference. Right, so, but you can always decipher the meaning of legal terms from the context. Right, so a legal term is not just given, it's thrown in the passage. Obviously, there would be a certain introduction to it. There would be a story built around it. It would be discussed for a particular reason. So if there's a certain natural justice principle discussed, then they would give you a context of that. Tota. You're typing tota, no? Parrot. मैं से बहुत देर से टूटा पढ़ रही थी and टूटा means broken. I was like, what? हाँ, तो legal terms, there might be legal terms, but then they would be given with a context. You can easily derive with the help of the context. And there's a very, very rare chance that they might be there. Before ending session, can you explain how we can access notes on the I would, Siddhant? Definitely, don't worry. There's a slide specially dedicated for that. India accepts different countries' rules but by modifying them. India doesn't accept international treaties and conventions as it is. India ratifies, and most of the times, even if India attends, it does not follow. For example, refugee conventions that are, basically very important, India doesn't follow any of them. This is the success kit. So you go to home, right? On home, you have a CLAT success kit in which you get mini mocks, ebook, study plan, right on the home, right? And since I am giving you a certain kind of a content, right? For example, I gave you content yesterday, 𝗟𝗏 𝗥𝗲 and one more thing, void and voidable, I guess. And then Siddhant's content, he wants a clear explanation or, a proper content on Hindu divorce. It will be available here. So anything that is teach, a content, a material, study material will be available as an ebook. Anything that is, like a test or something, or maybe an answer key or question or passage or something like that will be available in mini mocks. So many times I give you a mock, I give you passages, but I don't really give you answers. So the answer key would be available here in the mini mocks. This is for future references also. If I'm giving you a certain plan that, you need to follow this, you need to do this week, then it will be a study plan. A kind of a homework. If I'm giving you a homework, it'll be in the study plan. If I'm giving you something to read, it'll be in the ebook. If I'm giving you something to solve, then it'll be mini mock. How many passages will be there in legal reasoning? Hard to say. They changed the number of questions, but I'm assuming 5 to 6. Okay, Siddhant, clear? The content that you're looking for, Namra and Siddhant, that will be available in the ebook session. You'd have to upload your admit card, by the way. Only then you can access it. Any other question that you have? This is dualist theory. I think I already explained it. Now we have a detailed analysis right after the exam, right? So on 3rd December, your analysis will begin at 5 and it'll continue. तो एग्जाम के तुरंत बाद तो नहीं है, थोड़ा टाइम लेकर है क्योंकि बच्चों को घर बार आने में टाइम लग जाएगा. तो हम 5 ही बजे से शुरू करेंगे, right? First impression and then an overall discussion on the paper and then section wise discussion. So it will be available on 3rd of December starting at 5 p.m. Okay. We also, for students who are preparing for CLAT 25, there's a certain study plan that I need to give to you so that you can start. There is a certain way you have to start. There are certain things that you have to do. You have a lot of time, and I have seen the students end up wasting a lot of it. So in order not to do that, I am coming up with a workshop. Okay. We also have a marathon tomorrow. It'll start at 11. What else? That's it. All the best, guys. This was my last session on YouTube for, when it comes to teaching. And I'm completely confident about you guys. I know you are going to do great. Do not doubt yourself. Let's just do few more questions and be done with it already. बस कल थोड़े से क्वेश्चन करेंगे और फिर आराम करेंगे. उसके बावजूद भी अगर आपको कोई कुछ लगता है कि मुझे अभी भी कोई चीज समझ नहीं आ रही है, you can always post it in the comments. I'll try my best to help you. Okay guys, thank you so much for being part of the entire CLAT journey. It was really fun teaching you it all. It was just an adventure ride, and do like the session. There are so many of you and still haven't liked, right? So do not doubt yourself at all. बिल्कुल अपने आप पर डाउट करने की जरूरत नहीं है. बढ़िया करके तबीयत के साथ एग्जाम को दीजिए, और जो होगा अच्छा ही होगा, बुरे की क्यों उम्मीद करनी है, जो होगा अच्छा होगा, सब अच्छा ही हो जाता है, मेहनत कभी फिजूल नहीं जाती, हमेशा हमेशा। इज अल्टीमेट रिविजन इनफ? नो, ऑफ कोर्स नॉट, राइट। मेहनत हमेशा कोई ना कोई फ्रूट बियर करती ही है, शायद उस मौके पे ना दिखे पर जरूर दिख जाएगा। कोई बात नहीं करे, मन नहीं गया, नहीं भी गया तो भी कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, इट्स ओके। मॉक्स में 90+ बहुत मुश्किल से जाता है, मॉक्स बहुत डिफिकल्ट बनाए जाते हैं। दे आर नॉट क्रिएटेड फ्रॉम एन एवरेज स्टूडेंट्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, राइट। सो एवरीवन, गुड नाइट, टेक केयर ऑल ऑफ यू, एंड वी शैल मीट with each other tomorrow also. तब तक सब अपना ख्याल रखेंगे, हम फिल्म में रहेंगे, बाय बाय।